Beaver Wars had forever reshaped eastern North America. Indigenous power corridors fractured. The Iroquois carved out the middle ground, but could not hold wave upon wave of colonial migrants. The brutality and displacement of entire populations, led by the Iroquois, Dutch, and English, set a grim model for later Indian wars, removal policies, and settler colonial expansion. Survivors of Huron, Erie, and Susquehannock tribes carried memories of torture and massacre into French and English churches. This helped fuel decades of frontier animosity. By the Treaty of Paris in 1763, Britain stood completely unchallenged in North America, yet the fruits of Iroquois conquest had already begun to wither. The Six Nations entered uneasy peace with colonial governments, even as squatters pressed into their western hunting grounds. Their power and control began to wane into obscurity. The Beaver Wars were more than a series of frontier raids. They were a seismic collision of economies, cultures, and technologies. From the Huron fields on Georgian Bay to the Susquehanna timberlands, villages burned, captives writhed in torture, and survivors fled westward in terror. The Iroquois Confederacy, armed with Dutch steel and driven by strategic vision, exacted a reign of terror so brutal that historians now consider it genocidal. Yet the same currents that buoyed Iroquois power, the fur trade, European arms, diplomatic savvy, also carried the seeds of its decline. The English takeover of New Netherland, the failure of French courtship, and the relentless tide of Anglo-American settlers foreshadowed a new era. By 1763, the colonial map had been redrawn. British dominion replaced the old balance of power. In this crucible of violence and commerce, the foundations were laid for the British and later American colonization of the continent. The Beaver Wars remind us that early North America was no Edenic frontier, but instead a cauldron of competing interest and existential struggles. The echoes of murder and torture still reverberate in the scars on the land and the memories of indigenous peoples who survived the fires of war. In understanding this history, we confront not only the complexities of colonial encounter, but the human capacity for both brutality and resilience.